and questions and answers about what's happening in the Dáil, in politics, in socialist campaigning. Like, share, all that good stuff, and please put any questions you have in the chat. In either I'm live on Instagram and on TikTok, so put the questions in and I will do my best to answer as many as I can. This week has been a busy week as always. Big focus this week, of course, is building for the Cost of Living Coalition protest this Saturday, which is the last Saturday before the budget. Trying to get thousands of people out on the streets. It's 1 o'clock. Parnell Square in Dublin will be marching to the Dáil, demanding action on the cost of living and housing crisis. So just a lot of focus has been based on trying to build that protest, both through speeches in the Dáil, but also out on the ground, giving out leaflets, talking to people, trying to emphasise that, look, if we don't have big numbers out on the streets, then the government has really signalled their intention not to act to protect people from the cost of living and housing crisis. You know, say in terms of pensions and social welfare, they're talking about giving people a €12 weekly increase, which is less than the rate of inflation, i.e. like just allowing people to sink further into poverty despite the fact that the state is operating a massive surplus. It's clear they're not intending to use the surplus to build a state construction company to develop public, social and genuinely affordable homes. It's clear they're not going to take the kind of climate action that is necessary to improve people's lives, to dramatically reduce carbon emissions through things like free public transport, through retrofitting of people's homes, putting solar panels on people's homes. They're the sort of things that we need to be on the streets demanding to tackle the actual cost of the cause of the cost of living crisis, which is overwhelmingly due to so-called greed, inflation, massive profiteering by the corporations who have, the banks have literally doubled their profits, oil and gas companies have tripled or quadrupled their profits, the electricity companies similarly. So we need as many people as possible on the streets this Saturday, 1 o'clock, at Parnell Square. Some of the other things we've been doing this week is we hosted a very successful, what's called like an EV room briefing. So we brought people in from Long COVID Advocacy Ireland and Long COVID Kids to speak about their experience of living with long COVID. Really heartbreaking stuff in terms of the impact on children who aren't able to go to school every day, adults who aren't able to go to work anymore because of this debilitating impact of long COVID, and how the government isn't taking it seriously. People find it very hard to get properly diagnosed from GPs. The long COVID clinics are massively under-resourced. It isn't recognised as an occupational illness. So it was a very good meeting. I raised it in the Dáil today with Micheál Martin. I didn't get much of an answer. Evan O'Leary says bald. Thank you, Evan. You're right. I am pretty bald. I appreciate the observation. But back on track to long COVID, we're going to keep pushing. We're going to try and get these people to get in before various committees in the Dáil to speak about their experience. We're going to try and have what's called a topical issue debate on it in the Dáil, but also try and have a full debate before Christmas, because hundreds of thousands of people are affected by long COVID in this country. That's the reality. About 5% of people are affected. Paul, do you think carers' allowance should be means tested? A question from J.R. No, I don't think so. Carers save the state an incredible amount of money. It's tens of billions of euros on a yearly basis. I have to look it up. It is a phenomenal amount of money being done like almost for free by carers who are very much ill-treated by the state. Thanks. Someone likes my jumper. That's nicer than the bald comment. Appreciate that. A question on Instagram about how do we hope to support the Section 39, 56, 10 workers due to go on indefinite strike later this month. We'll be joining the picket lines and we'll be raising the cases in the Dáil. We raised it this week. These are workers who are effectively, like, much of what should be public services are provided by various groups of workers in like their kind of hands-off relationship, kind of arm's length relationship with the state, where the state gets to say, oh, they're not public sector workers, but they're providing public services in terms of disability, in terms of respite, all that kind of stuff is all done by workers who aren't officially public service workers and are underpaid, ill-treated, and you have a huge crisis in terms of recruitment and retention as a result. And so our simple demand is that they should be treated with equality, with parity to those in the public sector crisis. Who do I work with? I'm a member of People Before Profit. People would know maybe Breed Smith, Richard Boy Barrett, Gino Kenny, and then we're also in a group, People Before Profit Solidarity, with Mick Barry in the Dáil. Brendan Maguire, did I catch Dara Adelaide make a fool of that guy Philip Dwyer? I did. Brendan, did you catch it? He made a fool of him twice. So he made a fool of him once when at the protest when Philip Dwyer, who's this dog kicking, creche creeping far right creep, he was trying to do an interview with Dara Adelaide, and Dara was like, yeah, but it was all Oscuelga. And your man Philip Dwyer couldn't understand anything Dara was saying, so he made a fool of him. But then yesterday he tweeted at Dara Adelaide saying, "Please debate me," and then said something about Ireland, and then had an Ivory Coast flag. He tweeted an Ivory Coast flag, and Dara Adelaide was just like, "Oh, that's an Ivory Coast flag." It was extremely funny. Yeah, fair play to Dara Adelaide. I think there's an article on the Journal about it, and you can donate to Dara Adelaide's. Dara Adelaide is a member of People for Profit, an activist of People for Profit, a local election candidate. You can donate to his GoFundMe if you search on Twitter or whatever, you'll definitely find it. The other issue I was going to talk about is neutrality and the very conscious attempt that the government is, it's not just making, it's doing. It's undermining neutrality day after day. It's using Putin's invasion of Ukraine to pursue this pre-existing agenda of aligning with European militarization, aligning with NATO. A part of that has been sending Irish troops to train Ukrainian soldiers. We opposed this. When we opposed it, we were told, no, don't worry, they're just going to be doing non-lethal training, things like demining. Again and again we asked about it, and they gave repeated examples of what they were going to be doing, which was all so-called non-lethal stuff. Then it emerged in the summer that was a lie, that they were engaged in rifle training of Ukrainian soldiers, which is clearly a breach of neutrality. And then Micheál Martin was on the radio on Monday or Tuesday and was asked about it, and he actually seriously tried to maintain that training people to shoot a rifle is non-lethal training. It's just, I mean, it's ridiculous. Obviously that's not true. It cannot be conceived of as non-lethal training. It's clearly lethal, but it shows kind of how deep down they are, like, and not expecting that sort of question, and then just like pushing forward despite the fact, trying to ignore the contradiction that is clearly a breach of neutrality. So I asked Leo Varadkar about that in the Dáil this week, and Leo Varadkar's answer was to say, it's defensive. But I was saying, does he accept it's lethal? And he just did avoid the question, and said it was just defensive, which is not, I mean, we think we're opposed to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, absolutely, and we think the occupying forces should leave, but we are opposed to this being used to undermine Irish neutrality. And clearly, training one side in a military conflict is not being militarily neutral, very, very clearly. Mickey Joe O'Toole says, this guy is looking for hate speech. Who are you talking about there, Mickey? I presume you're not talking about me, because you know that I was the one who opposed the hate speech bill in the Dáil. Rumours have it you have sugar in your back garden. No comment on that one. I don't know what the difference. Sorry, someone says that DCC and SDCC treat carers as income, but others don't. I don't know about that. If you want to email me, paul.murphy@oireachtas.ie, we'll try and look into that. Paul, the minimum wage increase, any thoughts? I mean, some increase is better than no increase, but like, it's very, very, very far from a living wage. We think we need to have a minimum wage of €15 an hour. Yeah. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, I'm afraid I don't know enough. What's wrong with supporting NATO and helping them? Yeah, good question. I think NATO are the bad guys, just like Russia and the CSTO, which is kind of the Russian equivalent of NATO. They're also the bad guys. NATO is an instrument of US and Western imperialism. You look at what they've done in the Middle East most blatantly, also in Libya. They are just as willing as Russia to commit war crimes, to invade countries, to occupy those countries. They're not the good guys here. And if the government had its way, Ireland would be very, very close to NATO, if not a member of NATO, which means Irish soldiers may well have been sent abroad to participate in the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan. Question, if we raise minimum wage from 15 to €15, will prices not subsequently increase? Well, that depends on where the money comes from. 2/3 of the price increases we're seeing globally and in this country, there's lots of studies done, comes because of profiteering. These companies are making extra profits. So the money should just come out of the profits that they're making. And that way it does not add to inflation. So we want strong trade unions, strong laws for workers to be able to shift, more of the product of workers' labour to going to workers themselves rather than going to corporations. Question on Instagram, thoughts on the Loch Ness situation? Yeah, pretty horrendous. And it's unfortunately kind of a sign people don't know there's massive algal blooms which are devastating wildlife, biodiversity in Loch Ness, which is the biggest freshwater lake in Ireland and Britain. And it's a sign of what's coming, We had horrible pollution in the Poddle at the weekend, seeing what's happening in Blessington Lake, and this is all a consequence of just the destruction of our environment that happens because of capitalism, where profit is put first, where you have runoff into fresh water, and then you've gone from having something like 850 pristine rivers in this country to having much less than that. So our water quality is really diminishing, and it's a consequence of industry and runoff from industry into water, but also because of industrialized farming, nitrates and phosphorus. Sorry, just trying to look through the questions. The Russians did something similar with a lake near Kazakhstan. That's absolutely correct. They're also socialists. They're definitely not socialists. I was in Kazakhstan, actually. I'm barred now from going to Kazakhstan again because I was supporting a really important strike of workers in the west of Kazakhstan, a place called Mangistau, when I was a member of the European Parliament. Afterwards, they were massacred by the Kazakh government. The Russian military, actually, at the start of last year, before invading Ukraine, sent soldiers to Kazakhstan. The Kazakh government and the Russian government have absolutely nothing to do with socialism. They're extreme right-wing capitalists in reality. Kieran says, you voted for the hate speech law. No, I didn't, Kieran. I was the one who called the vote against the hate speech law. Can you go and find some evidence, please? It's a bit ridiculous now. If you don't pay enough attention to these things, you think you're coming on here to oppose the hate speech law, and you're telling the person who actually opposed the hate speech law, that I voted in favour of it. So you might want to check where you're getting your information from, and whether other stuff is accurate too. Why did I not support the hate speech bill? That's a good question. Because I think parts of it went significantly too far. In particular, there's a section which effectively creates a thought crime where people could be prosecuted for things that they had on their computer that was not published. I think that's very problematic. Ivan, I think, maybe thinks we're in Britain or something, asking about the Liberal Democrats. Luke Carroll, what's your thoughts on United Ireland? I'm for it. I'm for a socialist United Ireland. Protesters are not thugs or scum, working class people. It's a joke. What's going on? Government needs to. I don't fully understand that. But yeah, the vast majority of protesters are not thugs or scum or whatever, and hopefully there'll be thousands of people out this Saturday. No problem, Kieran. You took it back. Cool. The government needs to go. I agree with you 100%. Good question. What's the real reason between green paper on disability allowance? This is a really important thing, which maybe didn't get that much publicity, apart from then when Varadkar put his foot in his mouth and in response to me and spoke about Benefit Street. People might remember that. So this is horrendous what they're planning to do on disability allowance. They're planning to introduce like a tiered system of disability allowance based on like how much they think you can work, and it looks very like what the Tories did in Britain, which is really well depicted in this film I, Daniel Blake, which you should watch if you haven't seen. What do I think it's about? I think it's about demonising people on disability allowance and trying to save the government money. That's basically what it's about, I think. So we need to like bring this out and oppose it and have a campaign, significant campaign against it. Look after the poor and the vulnerable in the budget. I agree with you 100%. Opinions of building less car-centric infrastructure. Again, I agree with you 100%. Think an important part of that is free public transport. Getting cars out of the city centre. Question, Joe, how do we stop the rise of the far right in this country? Good question. I think those of us who recognise what these people stand for, you know, that the core people, I'm not saying all the people who go to protests or whatever, but the core people want to see Ireland go back decades and decades to a society where basically the Catholic Church is in control, you've no abortion rights, no gay rights, no trade union rights, a very authoritarian state. Need to bring that out and explain how, look, these people who are trying to blame migrants for the housing crisis, they're actually doing the dirty work of the developers, the corporate landlords, those who are profiting from the housing crisis. They want ordinary people to be divided and fighting amongst themselves based on where they come from, what colour they are or whatever, as opposed to uniting against those who are at the top, who are making big profits from the housing crisis, and a housing crisis that existed well before we had any migrants coming here from Ukraine. So I think we need to expose what's their real agenda. We need to oppose them wherever they attempt to, you know, intimidate refugees or whatever. But I also think we need to build a movement of ordinary people on the issues that affect ordinary people. The price of supermarket goods, you know, the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis. We need to get people out on the streets against the real enemy and give people a sense of their own power again. If you increase the population, require increased resources, says Pikachu. But if you increase the population, you also increase the resources. Do you not understand that we need people here to provide our health service? I don't know if you've been into any hospital, but a very big percentage of the nurses, the health staff who are not originally from Ireland, they are bringing resources here. We need people to build the homes that we need. What is my party? People Before Profit is my party. Alright. That makes no sense. Sorry there. Thoughts on Grip Media? I think Grip Media is shite. Alright. I'm going to leave it there for now. Loads of other work to do. I hope I got through a fair number of questions there now, in fairness. I don't know when the minimum wage will increase. If you Google it, you'll find out. I suspect it's the 1st of January, but I would have to check. And yes, I will. Sorry, someone's asking about stand with support survivors of child sexual abuse. Yeah, definitely. If you want to send me on the details of that, Mick, I'll do my best. Creedon, the PWO protest, so the postgraduate workers organisation, had a protest outside the Dáil today, which unfortunately I couldn't make. But central to that is the idea that PhD workers should be treated as workers, should get a living wage. I know Breed raised it in the Dáil today after the protest. Got a kind of usual kind of answer from Neil Martin, which is designed to sound like he's agreeing, but without actually committing to anything. But anyway, we'll keep going on all of that. I answered the question about NATO earlier there as to why I hate NATO. But if you rewind, or else go and watch it on Instagram. All right. Thanks everybody. See you next week. Bye bye.